All right, Gary. So, do you want to intro your second book then, and we can kind of lead into it?
Well, there's numbers in everything we're doing. There's numbers from the train ticket you buy to your. There's a reason why people choose their PIN numbers. There's all sorts of which is chaos theory within mathematics, and again I explain that. Within you've got numerology and you've got gematria, and numerology is the foretelling or the kind of like the throwing the bones on the floor and trying to predict something, which I'm kind of not into. I'm a guy of proof. But there are some very strange things when you start putting words together in numerology, and then you take them out of gematria. Now, there are plenty of gematria generators out there that you can do stuff with to work out what words mean certain things. And in my book, I get quite scary in terms of the familiarity with certain numbers. I work through from number 1 all the way through to the speed of light, which is a very extensive number. So I'm going through all these numbers, both in terms of history, secret societies. Girls operate on number 7, boys operate on number 8, genetically. For the amount of time it takes for teeth to start growing and the body to start going, and how many 7s in or times 6 before they start being able to give birth. And so girls are 7, boys are 8, and so I just spread all this stuff out for people to see. And when you see it in numbers, there's no denying it. You can't get away from it and say, well, that's just not right, because it's black and white. Numbers are 1s and 0s. It's proof. It's there for you to see, more so than words, because words you can interpret. And numerology is quite funny. I've called up a document here because I had a look at you. So this is a bit of fun that people can have. Work out your own name. You being John Cooper, your initials are 10 and 3. Now 10 and 3, you've got to add them, so it becomes 13. So you've got to break these numbers down in terms of the mystery schools, how they work.
Is this numerology, or this is gematria, isn't it?
This is numerology.
This is numerology. Oh, I thought gematria is where you added up the numbers. No.
Well, the numbers, but break them down. But we're going into now. We're taking those numbers, and now we're going into having fun with how these mystery schools work. Okay. So you had the matchmakers in the Judaic religions, and they still use them quite heavily, in the same as they do in the Muslim world. Your name is terribly important in terms of matchmaking with your partner's selection by your family lineage. So you're like 13 and 2. Obviously, John, meaning J, is the 10, and the C is the 3. But then if you add up the grand total of all you're 11. Now, 11's another really interesting number, because 11 is the wake-up number. 11 means at some point you'll become something else in the mystery schools. You'll grow, and that's why a lot of this stuff about do you see 1111 is always happening. It's kind of a shifting consciousness, is what they believe. I'm just telling you what they believe. It doesn't matter what we believe, but this is what they believe. So I try to explain the basis of their thought processing, and as we go through, you think to yourself, hang on, it sounds ridiculous when you start this journey, but as you get towards sort of halfway through, you think, I'm getting a bit nervous about this now. In your name, also another one they use is anagrams. So if you look at your anagram name, it's John, Cop, and Orr. Now, police officer is a cop, but the Irish word for Orr is shrewdness and practical intelligence. They use this stuff constantly.
Do they?
And again, you can.
I'm also Cop Hero John as well. That's another anagram of my name.
Yeah, well, you've got to have fun with this too. You've got to kind of look into this stuff too. But the mystery schools use it heavily. So I break all these things down in terms. I mean, if you add up my full name, I'm 101, and 101 is a scary chapter in the book because the other stuff that I discovered. But we'll go through some of that. And if you add the anagram of my name, it's argue, hang, and fry. And these people, what they're doing to us, I think the last two is kind of in my character, in terms of I'm not an angry man, but there are aspects within your name that demonstrate to the mystery schools what you're all about.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, without doubt. For example, with the 101, I came across I was discussing 101 in the book about Cyberdyne Systems 101, you know, Terminator, because I do movies in there as well. The first one that was sent back to destroy humanity, and then George Orwell's Room 101, you went in, you never came out, and then the program on TV, Room 101, the audience selects. Well, during the 101, I came across a document of a court case of 2013 called Molecular Pathology versus Myriad Genetics. And that, again, is quite scary, how I arrived there from just a number. I kind of let this thing take me. And it was all about the RNA and DNA of these poisons. And it basically means that we can be patented if we've taken them. So again, these numbers lead to very strange places when you start looking at them and joining them together. And sometimes they make me feel really, really uncomfortable. And don't forget, in Revelations, the numbers there were 12:23. It states that at the end of days, the sorcerers will deceive humanity. Now that's in Revelations, but if you look at the origin of sorcerers, it means pharmakia.
Pharmakia, yeah.
Pharmacists. So that in itself is a numeric sort of thing that exists there in the background that you kind of got to think, well, this is a bit weird. So then if you look at carbon 666, you know, we are on the periodic table, we are predominantly carbon mixed with water. But we're 6 ions, protons, and neutrons, all of which are 6. So the man is 666. And again, in Revelations, it says the man is 666.
Why does what's the significance? I know we're going to come on to each individual number in a bit, but like just quickly, what's the significance of 666? And is it like innately evil, or what is it about this number that like represents the beast, like the devil,
in
or
the East,
Satan?
In the East, it's lucky.
Right.
It's a lucky to have 666, but in the West, it's not. And it's mostly biblical text. But if you break back the number 666, it's all divisible in terms of its own number, and breaks back to 333, and then breaks back to 1.5, and then breaks back. So you've got to always boil it back and boil it down for its origin. And basically, 666 is about lending. It's a number based on usury, debt. Is its origin. So it's seeped in history in terms of a number that really is a kind of steering of humanity wrong. You know, before we invented -1, there was no debt in the world. People couldn't get something if they didn't have it. It was only the creation of debt that made humanity start to get greedy, because then they could lend. And that's when it all started to go wrong. And then the banking system and all the other things that started happening. And then, you know, 100 years later, you had Jesus throwing out the lawyers and the money lenders from the temple. He threw out 2 types of people. And like I said in the first book, if you get your credit card, there's a dove on them, on the hologram. And that's biblical, because wealthy people sacrificed ox to God every year in Baal worship if they weren't prepared to sacrifice their children, and the poor sacrificed doves for debt. And that's why there's a dove hologram on your credit cards. So this stuff runs really, really deep. But you've got to kind of break this stuff back. And there's different types of gematria. There's Sumerian, there's a satanic one, which I've looked into that, and it doesn't stack up, so I've left that one out. There's straightforward English gematria using the English letters, including the K and the J and the L that originally wasn't in there. So I explained that, and then you've got with the reversed order, you've got Sumerian. Now the Sumerian is really interesting because that goes back to the original language with taking out some of the letters. And if you add up some of the numbers for Sumerian, it's really, really scary. So I've got a list here, RFID scanner. I'll give you the numbers so you know how they add up, but they're in the book. 108, 36, 54, 24, 114, 18, 6, 84, 84, 30, and 108. That adds up. RFID scanner adds up to 666. Then if you go to Satan's RFID, that adds up to 666. Vaccination adds up to 666. Mark of the Beast adds up to 666. A COVID vaccine adds up to 666. Bioimplant adds up to 666. Receive a mark adds up to 666. The head on or hand adds up to 666. Evil masks adds up to 666. People sin, 666. Monetary, 666. Lucifer hell, 666. Lucifer Hades, 666. Corrupt, 666. I'm breaking all this stuff down, and that's just a smidgen.
But yeah, that's just tip of the iceberg, isn't it? But can I ask on that though? I mean, what's the significance of the 666 then? If it's not innately evil and it's just to do with debt, then what's the significance of these numbers assigned with those words?
Well, within the biblical texts, it's a warning. Hence why it's in Revelations.
Right.
In the Judaic, it's number 11, and in the Muslim text of the Quran, and the 200 books that sit behind the Quran, I don't know if people are aware of that, their number is 7. So there's a reflective number, and if you go through the Arabic, number 7 is all this stuff as well. There's a direct correlation between warnings and certain numbers within the languages that we speak.
Yeah.
And when you do the numbers and you add up the numbers, it's not a coincidence. There's something going on here. Now, I joke to friends and say that we're in the Truman Show. You know, only we're the ones that are looking at Truman, because he doesn't know what's going on, because everyone's wandering around getting this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of role reversal, if you like.
Because I would just also say though, because I'm just going to play devil's advocate here, because I know what a lot of people are going to say. I mean, you've got like the face mask 666, but what about just face masks on their own? I'm guessing that's not 666, is it?
No, but if you add them up, you know, when you've got like 60 terms all about one particular subject, and then you've got 60 terms all about one particular subject, and then you roll the same words into like English gematria, you get 111, and then you associate 111, and then you get 74. Well, 74, if 7 plus 4 is 11. So it's a whole different understanding of a numeric code within the English.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking though, if you were to take some of these phrases that you've got, some of these words, let's say you took face mask and it didn't add up to 666, but then you could find an extra word to put in there to make it up to 666. So let's say face masks equals 521 or something like that. Yeah. But then you could find you could go through the language and find a preposition. So you could put a face mask. No, that's not 666. You could put bad face mask. No, that's not 666. Have a face mask. And then you could go through like hundreds of those, and then you go, the face mask 666. They told you, wow, look how significant it is. You see what I mean? It's
but your options within the amount of letters we have are quite limited.
Yeah,
you know, it's quite difficult to invent the words to make the number. Yeah, because the correlations are you can only imagine. You know, with the amount of letters in our language, it is extremely limited. You know, the T and the H and the E and what they add up to. So it's beyond coincidence that these things are there. And then if you consider, you know, a man's thumb in terms of being an inch across, and the same correlation is with the pyramids in Egypt, and the same number there is the speed of sound and the distance of Earth to the moon and the speed of light. So all these numbers are constantly there. I'm just trying to show people and say, well, what do you reckon? You know, another funny one that has come up and has been around Facebook for about a year and a half was corona. If you add up corona with CORONA in a vertical, That's 6 letters. And if you take the English gematria, C is 3, O is 15, R is 18. You add them up, and that's 66. So corona adds up to 666. And then if you take 666 and divide it when Biden was running for president, which is 2020, you get 30330. Well, why is that an important number? Well, it's an important number because that was his text for his elections. That was his text number. So there's something else going on here that I'm just sort of saying, hey, folks, take a look at this. You know, there is a direct correlation between the letters that we're using, the world that we're in, and numbers. So only people aren't really good at numbers.
So you think that's a warning then? You think that like it's a hidden code for a warning for something? Oh, Gary.
Yeah, I'm convinced we're in a. Yeah, I'm convinced we're in a mathematical universe.
So let's say you have 666. If you add all those numbers up, it's 18, right? Which is a 9. Is that significant or not?
Well, yeah, 9 in mathematics doesn't exist.
Right.
And I'll give you a little thing to add up. Where in when you're calculating mathematics, you disprove you ignore the 9. Because whenever you're doing calculations or multiplications, 9 doesn't exist. It's a throwaway number. And I'll show you some stuff to put up that you always strike a 9 out with math. And this is why it's frustrating for me, because when I say 9 doesn't exist, people are going, "What is he talking about?" Because simply they've not done their math homework to realise that what all these numbers are. 3s are you've got binary, and then you've got 3, and then you've got inverted numbers, and what they mean, and then just in calculation, and then you can move it across into our existence of the numbers that are important to doctors and surgeons and our everyday existence. So it's very much kind of like it's a different way of looking at the world, which is, I suppose, is what a lot of my work is about. It's about seeing things that you don't see until someone shows them to you, and then you think, oh, something wrong here. And yeah, it goes on and on and on to the point that the blizzard of problems comes at you, and I've had to be very careful about book 2, because I don't want it just to be numbers to bore people to death, to think that, crikey, this is just, too chewy. I can't get it. So I've kind of kept it like book 1, in that I lead people through very carefully to explore and explain all this stuff that's behind everything. And me talking to you to explain I've written a book about numbers, can you imagine how boring that must be to some people? Like, oh my God, I'm not listening to this guy. He's written a book about numbers. I hated math at school, which is not what my work is all about. So
I'm sure it'd be interesting. I'm sure people will love it. I mean, I'd love to see it. It's like the first one was like reading a little alchemist's book, so I'm sure this one will be exactly the same.
It's pulling back the curtain, saying, have a look at this and have a look at that, and decide for yourselves. It's about good conversation. I like good conversation.
Yeah.
And the number 2, another one, is really interesting. I thought I'd start out very slowly and then lead through some of these things. But book 2 led me into Janus worship. And somebody on my Facebook page put something up a month or so ago, and I just started to chuckle, thinking some people are really over the target, and I love people that are just, they're there with you. They're just, they've discovered things like you have, and I people are just fantastic when you're having good conversation about a subject, and other people will be listening to you in a pub, thinking, what are they talking about? And that's what the spread of knowledge is, isn't it? It's discussing things that you really don't know. Because Janus was a Roman two-faced god, and he was the origin of Baal, Baal, Baal worship and sacrificial elements. Now, the two-faced god Janus was the god of doorways and the beginning and the ends of things. The construct of the Roman army would only lead through one gate, which was called the Janus gate, because all other gates were considered unlucky and that's why we don't walk under ladders. It's Janus worship, the two posts,
okay.
the Boaz and the Jachin, but together. And and Janus in itself is quite an interesting individual that the old world used to worship. Hence, it's the two faces of humanity. Well, the way I see it, we're in two faces now. There's those that wear a mask and those that don't. So is that a Janus worship by the controllers? Interesting question. Another good discussion. And if you add up Janus, it's number 11.
Same as me.
And then and you've got the moon, and you'll find that people you get on with add up generally to your numbers. And again, I put that in the book. But the moons of Saturn. Now we all know about Saturn and Saturnian. But there are three. There out of all the moons, there are three that have direct relationship with the number 3 and the number 11, and they are Dion, Prometheus. Yes, that is a moon of Saturn, and Janus. So, how did these people know of these 3 moons historically, and then name them? There's a gene within our RNA called the Janus gene, Janus. I'm talking about. It's pronounced Janus with a Y, meaning X and Y chromosome. But we've got a Janus gene within us, and guess what that gene affects? RNA, the RNA spike. So it's comfortable when you really start to drill into certain areas of the study of the origin of the numbers, and then the words that come out of them, and then the history. I mean, Janus was a villain in the James Bond movie. I don't remember what it was called, but it was 1995, and it was an ex-Bond agent who's because 007 is Bond, but Janus was 006. So again, the numbers keep popping up, and it's like, well, are they throwing this stuff up there just for fun, or is there something else behind it? Now, people, do your homework. Look up PCR testing machine. What's the one machine that does all the PCR testing? Guess what it's called?
Janus?
Any chance, John? It's called the Janus machine. Yeah. So this is why it starts to really kind of get a little bit uncomfortable when you start to explore this stuff. It's not coincidence. You don't name a PCR testing machine from a moon of Saturn that also has our DNA code, which is also worshipped by the Romans before Baal worship.
Yeah.
So
also, I just remembered there's a patent for a cryptocurrency device. And it's 606060.
Yeah,
and it's by Microsoft, patented by Microsoft, and that's to effectively harness our human output and convert into a cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
and that's patented.
Yeah. So again, that's all in the book. I did a talk on that about 3 years ago when I realised about Luciferays. And all that when it was early days when I discovered it. So thankfully people have sort of picked up on it or knew about it as well and have run with it, because that's what it's about, spreading knowledge, isn't it? It's about us all just having all this knowledge, to not keeping it to ourselves for our own selfish reasons. I think the real problem with society is secrets. I think if everybody knew everything, we could all just deal with each other on a level playing field. And the guy's name, I've got it here, James Gates. Now, he's at MIT in America, and he's discovered superstring theory. And again, I go into chaos theory, and there's something called the butterfly effect. But string theory, he's come across his work. I've looked at the math in his work, and there seems to be computers operate at the speed of sound, and supercomputers operate at the speed of light. And he's found a patch code within superstring theory on the universe that seems to have patch codes, like you'd patch repair a virus on a computer. It's as if something, and I use the word loosely, has and is making patch repair calculations to our existence. And then we get into a whole woo-woo discussion. But it's good fun. It's good fun. It's kind of like it doesn't just limit our minds to our present understanding of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping people might enjoy book 2 as they did book 1.
What do you think about COVID-19 and what that stands for? I mean, the letters, you know, it looks as though it's either saying certificate of vaccination ID, which could be, but it could also mean corona vaccination ID. I think, I can't remember who it was. I think Fauci or Tedros said it was virus disease, but I think it's more likely to do with the vaccination and ID, I think. And also the numbers.
Yeah,
well,
I've written a whole chapter on that. A whole half chapter on that.
Yeah.
And the numbers, they demonstrate for themselves. This is not a coincidence. I mean, if you take, I mean, it's basically a drug on trial at the moment, isn't it? So if you take 2021, 2022, and 2023, which is the period in which this drug trial is being undertaken, all the 2s add up to 6 vertically. All the other numbers add up to 6, and then the other numbers add up to 6. So all the 3 years vertically add up to 666. It's not a coincidence.
Which came first? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Are we saying that this is like a universal number that like attracts these kind of world agendas into it, or are we saying that there's certain dark occultists or whatever you want to call them that say, hang on, these years are coming up, shall we start the trial period during these years because they add up to 666 and that will somehow benefit us? And if it does benefit them, how does it benefit them?
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
I think it's the latter.
How do those numbers benefit them though?
Because it's energy numbers. Now,
right.
I'll let you into a little secret here. On the first book I wrote, the fonts are a certain size, the book is a certain size. There's a little secret people have discovered on page 12. There's another one on page 33. I've dropped these little secrets in as an energy thing to see if it works. The spine on the book is 666. I sell them on Amazon for $19.99. I discount them to 666 with a discount of $3.33. I explored these things to see how they work. And so when you're selling tens of thousands of copies from a first-time writer who's just a builder, that's what I am. It shouldn't add up. It shouldn't happen. So I firmly believe that there is energy in these numbers. Only I want to invert them. I want everyone to see them, and then we invert them against those that use them against us.
How do we invert them? And we infuse like positive energy into it.
We understand what they are, and then we use them against them. Yeah. And so the mystery schools are called that. If you talk to anyone from a mystery school, they'll say we're not a society. We're not a society of secrets. We're just a secret organisation that wants to keep secrets. Well, why keep secrets? Why shouldn't everybody know about everything? You know, you're entitled to your secrets when you shut your front door, but when it comes to if you go to a Christmas party, you know, 1 in 30 people is a member of a secret society. Do you feel comfortable with that? I don't. And if you look at MPs, they don't have to declare an interest in a secret society. And so it's games within games, and I just think it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Either you want to be part of that, that's fine. I've got no problem with you being part of that, but you need to declare. You need to, if you know, years ago, you're a member of the Communist Party, you had to declare it. All well and good. I've got no problem with someone being a member of something, but declare it. And if you, I mean, the Prime Minister's car is another example. I don't know if you've seen that one. His little runaround in town. The registration number is, I don't know, XY something, 666. These numbers aren't. Most people wouldn't buy a reg number with that number on it. I certainly wouldn't. But the Prime Minister's running around in one. It's a whole interesting discussion to be had.
It is. What do you think about the Teslas saying like 3, 6, and 9 are most powerful numbers?
Well, Tesla was obsessed with those numbers, and I won't break it here, but I found some Tesla texts from someone from his original work, and Tesla was not only onto something, he knew so much in terms of free energy, and that's why he died in abject poverty. As the same with Royal Rife. Royal Rife created the Rife machine, and people say, well, there's no real proof that those work or those don't work. I've got one, and let's just say it stimulates areas of my mind But Royal Rife created the electron microscope. He wasn't a fool. But as soon as these individuals discover such things, they're attacked, their work is destroyed, and they often die in abject poverty or take their own lives. And that in itself tells you that they're on the target.
I mean, I have heard that like Tesla was like a front, and actually that the free energy was around during the Tartarian period.
Yeah, I mean, there's
heard that as well. There's a whole other like
I've seen all that with all the Tartarian buildings and mud flood stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to proof, doesn't it? It's about proof. Whereas I'm just looking at the numbers with these individuals to say, well, they were onto something, whether or not they were coded sleepers in regard to their work. I don't know. You know, I don't know. I'm not. If I can't prove it, I don't go there. But if I can crack some of these codes that other greater minds than mine, can take this stuff forward, then all well and good. I've just been part of the small solution.
What do you think? Going back to the COVID-19, do you think that's like suggesting it's AI? Because if you take the letter, the number 1 is A, and the number 9 is I in the alphanumerically. So is that pointing towards artificial intelligence, do you think?
Well, we've got the whole discussion on transhumanism, haven't we?
Yeah.
And the whole push for transhumanism, which I feel uncomfortable with. I think the less science is there for us to enjoy and to improve society. The problem with humans is we want to create things. People always say to me, the best creation in the world was the wheel. And I say, no, it wasn't. It was the second wheel. Because otherwise we'd all be running around on single wheels everywhere. But we strive to improve, but we don't ever stop to think where we're going. So when we start a project, we don't realise that we're going to work into something called the Manhattan Project, and then create things called the atomic bomb. We as entities. We gallop off trying to create, but we don't really stop and think where we're going in the creation. And sometimes you gotta stop to smell the flowers, just to sort of to take stock rather than just gallop off. Because governments and corporations, it's all about greed. It's just about greed. That's all they're all about.
Yeah,
money. And for me, I've decided to die with a passport full of stamps, not a house full of furniture.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah,
I've got a different way of looking at the world.
I know. I'm exactly the same.
But yeah, just break the secrets and just have them all out there for everyone to discuss, and all well and good.
I mean, but do you think something like that though, like the COVID-19, is that valid, do you think, or is that just a coincidence, or are we saying there's no such thing as a coincidence? Or how would you see something like that? I mean, how far should people go when they're looking at numbers? I mean, you could look at that and you could make that association, but is that a tenuous one, or is that a valid one, do you think?
Well, in science, there's something called Occam's razor.
Yeah. And
when you're discussing Occam's razor as a science deduction, it basically is if all your conclusions and the intimations of your argument point in one particular and singular direction, even though how ridiculous or unreal it may sound or seem, you need to go and explore that area. And Occam's razor is used constantly with science to figure out solutions to problems, because it goes in an area that you're not like me with looking at 101. Why I was looking at US patents is because it was number 101. No matter where it takes you, you go. You don't just dismiss it. And so Occam's razor is a clear demonstration of where this stuff if it sounds undeniably ridiculous, but you keep coming up with the same numbers again and again and again, then you've got to go there. You've got to then look at that as a subject and quite seriously, rather than just say, oh, it's just a coincidence.
So is 19? Does 19 pop up anywhere else? Then is that significant?
19 is an interesting one, because 19 is the dead number of 1. So because 9
doesn't
plus
exist.
9 is, so no, 9 doesn't exist. So that comes back to 1.
Right. Okay.
But I take people through these numbers mathematically, and then through the mystery schools, and then through Gematria, and then through. So I everything from number 7s, from the 7 dwarfs to the 7 seals to the all the numbers keep appearing, but they're really basic numbers. I mean, 322 is another interesting number, because that's the skull and bones number, and that was chosen. That was chosen for a particular reason, which I won't drop now. But the 322 is everywhere as well, and it's not a coincidence. It's out there for you to see. You just got to be shown.
Should you be wary of these numbers? I mean, are there inherently evil numbers, and are there inherently good numbers, positive numbers, or is it just whatever you choose to, infuse within the number? You know what I mean?
I'm not scared. I'm not scared of walking under a ladder because I work on building sites. Yeah. So I'd never get anything done.
Yeah.
But equally, hence why these energy numbers, I found it quite interesting. 20 years ago when I first started to come across them, and I thought, and that's why in the books I'm putting the numbers into the books to see if there is an energy thing. Well, book 1 shouldn't have sold the way it sold. The first book should not have done what it's done. And is it the work? Is it the numbers? I don't know, but there's got to be something behind it. Because a builder who's got no platform, well, thanks to you guys, you give me time, and people like yourself, but it shouldn't have sold. It should not have sold, but it did. So, and I want other people just to see these numbers and maybe use them. Use them like I think they're used against us.
Which numbers would be good to use though? Like what are significant numbers to use and not use?
Oh, it's extensive.
Right.
You've got the positive and the negative, and it's about adding them up and deducing them and boiling them down and working it out. So it's I think the book will be a bit of a ride for people. I think they'll find it quite fascinating. And it's really hard to explain a numbers book in what, an hour?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's ridiculous. But when you see it in black and white in front of you, and you see the so-called coincidences again and again and again, you kind of start to think, well, hold on, there is something else going on here. And then you've got the biblical. I don't speak Hebrew. I can read Latin, and I taught myself Sumerian reading as well, because the Sumerian texts for another piece of work I want to do later for rewrite for the history rewrite, because our history is just an absolute shambles in terms of what we get told. We start with the Egyptians. It's nothing. And equally, all the number. I mean, time is another interesting one. You go on the internet, all your listeners now, just type in watch adverts. All watches have the same time on them.
Isn't it 10 to 10?
10 past 10.
Sorry, 10 past 10, because it's a smiley face, I was told. Yeah.
No. It comes back to biblical. It represents Jesus on the cross with his feet on the logo of the product. You've got some of them that are 11 minutes past and some 12.
Yeah.
But they're all the same. They're all the same. And there's a driver behind.
Or 10 to 2 maybe as well.
Most of them.
Some are 10 to 2.
Yeah. Certain products they do, but they're all the majority of them are all 10-10.
10-10. Yeah.
Yeah.
1-0-1-0.
1010, and that's important.
So is that important? Yeah. So what about 10 Downing Street then? Does that link in?
Well, 10. If you look at the top 10 Downing Street over the windows of 10 Downing Street, you've got the fire of the Jesuits, which is on the door. It's on above the doorway. So 10 really is letters, and the reason it's called 10. And again, I write about where it's called 10 Downing Street for its origin. It's where the term cabal comes from, for the ministers that are involved in the original processing through Parliament. That's where cabal comes from. It was the initial of their surnames, as a collective. Yeah, 10 Downing Street really above. It's not the 10. It's not really 10 because originally the houses were named all along that street. The tuck pointed buildings and because you've got the black brickwork buildings are tuck pointed and then the normal pointed ones. So I go into why those buildings are. Because again, in book 3 I want to do architecture, but people are screaming to do certain other subjects. They want Sumerian and stuff. I'm just trying to go where people want to go. But 10 is not the origin on that door. That's an I and an O. It really should have a Z and an N on each side. Zion is the origin from what that door should say. Yeah. Zion Street.
Is that what the street's called?
No, but that's where the Jesuits, their belief system was from. And hence the word from the Cabal, from the original people that set up the network within the Houses of Parliament when all that area was just grassland. You know, there was fettled streets. You know, there was only few and far between. There was no large conurbations. That was a Jesuit property construct. But people think it's a number. It's not. They're 2 letters.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
And this is what people like. They like. Oh, now I get. Now I, the origin of such things. I mean, the first individual to use biological warfare was out of the Far East from I think it was Neff, where he used to fire his victims over the walls of castles he was trying to take over, to pollute their water wells and streets with the plague. And it was a ship from there that came to Europe that spread the Black Plague. And that guy's name was Janus. So, coincidence?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot, isn't there? It's frightening already. There's a lot to it already. Is there any significance if you go through like the numbers 1 to 10? Like some of the numbers are also words, but not all of them. So like you have 1 means like if you're winning, you won, past tense of winning. 3 doesn't mean anything. 4 is also FOR. 5 nothing. 7 no. 8 is to eat something, past tense of eat. I mean, do you think there's anything in that or not?
No, I did look into that, and I just thought, well, there's not enough in the 10 numbers. If you only got 3 that kind of fall into that, that leaves 7 outside that discussion. And then I looked into the Hebrew with it as well, and it didn't work. So I kind of parked it because I couldn't chase that one down. But I did find it quite interesting that the phonetics of the words that we're using are that they're there in certain languages but not in others. So while they might be there in English, they're not there in Portuguese, for example, and they're not there in Arabic is quite an interesting one. I did find some interesting elements within the Arabic, but because I don't speak Arabic, I'm at a complete disadvantage. I can't dig that rabbit hole. I've got a friend who lives in UAE who's looked into certain things for me, but he's kind of like he's in IT. He's not in my occultic world, so it's very difficult to try and get someone to dig in a certain area with their own language. So I just need far greater minds than me to get onto this stuff. To crack the codes.
To crack the codes is what we're doing.
Because they're there. Without doubt, they're there.
But the first book you did was brilliant. I was just like absolutely hooked on it. So you keep going back to it and like look at it like a little magic book. But the second one I'm really looking forward to. And numbers actually really interest me. I know you're saying a lot of people might think it's a bit too chewy, but I actually think it's the way that you write is actually very accessible. And I think it's actually really interesting. It keeps you glued.
Well, the first book I was terrified because when you put your name on something and throw it out there as a creative piece of work, I was expecting you know, I don't know what I was expecting, but I did it anyway.
Mm.
And but book 2, I'm now terrified because people might not think book 2 is as good as book 1, and but equally the work that has gone in, that we are living in a mathematical universe, and when you see the numbers in front of you, they're there. You know, it's not conspiracy. It's not kind of like an intimation. It's not. They're there. The numbers are there in association with what we're doing every day, with the words that we're using, the watches that we're looking at, and the distances of our bodies to planetary movements. The numbers are there.
There's actually a guy that goes into courts, and he's actually worked out a mathematical way of winning every single court case by breaking down the words into like syntax, and then breaking that down into maths, so that it creates like a completely watertight mathematical sum that can't be broken down.
You're talking about Miller, are you?
Yeah, it could be. He's got like a double-barreled name, I think.
Yeah, Win Miller.
That's it. Yeah, I don't know if...
I've looked into that, and again, it's quite interesting. I do get it, but that's more formal in its approach to language, with the language that we're using. I mean, courts, really, you could have all courts decided with a computer program because of precedence. Because if you typed in the problem, the computer should be able to work it out to get to the solution. But because we don't have lawyers, we have legalers. They deal in legal, they don't do legal law. It's all about money, so they'd never have that happen. They wouldn't want that happen.
Yeah,
I'm in negotiation. I use that word lightly with the Law Society at the moment because I've made an application that they're operating in fraud, because it shouldn't be the Law Society, it should be the Legal Society, because they're legalers and they deal in legal, whereas the law is common law. So that's another little thing.
I know.
I'm constantly fighting.
Yeah, you should write a book how to like combat the Karunka stuff at the moment, and
I just combat things. If I don't like something, I go at it.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It's just in my name. Hence my name adds up to argue, fry, and hang. You know, it's there.
Yeah, it's there.
And I am 101. So
yeah, and I'm Cop Hero John, so I like to go after criminals. So
I found another one with you actually, just while we're here, just while we end up. Anagram also I found was job holder, like pick a woman.
Oh, you're doing my whole, including my middle names.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted this up, so you decide. Job holder, like pick a woman.
Oh God.
Meaning job holder, a person of a particular job or position.
Yeah.
And then meaning of picker, an abnormal desire to eat substances not normally eaten with no nutritional value. An example of picker is a medical expression of what women do during pregnancy. When they have a craving for something like coal, it's called picker. So yeah, I thought that was quite funny. So, but then I throw these things around all the time.
When's the book coming out? Do you want to give that a plug again?
Yeah, well, with all the other stuff that I do, you know, I do a 60-hour week on top of everything else that I do, and I'm helping a lot of people with legal rebuttals of some of this stuff that's being pushed at people, and I just try and help where I can, so probably about a month. I said that last month, but probably about a month. But the universe works in mysterious ways. It will be ready when it's ready. But it's largely there, and all the segues between sections are largely there. And I've got a very kind friend of mine called Michelle, who's gonna finally look through it when I give it to her to proofread. Being an English teacher, that should help me a little bit. But I think the numbers will make her nosebleed. But yeah, we'll see where we go. So not long.
Brilliant. All right, everyone. By the way, that's my T-shirt. I don't know if you've seen that. Scan
that's
this.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But yeah. All right, Gary. Well done, mate. Everyone, check out the book because the first one was absolutely brilliant. This one's going to be even more interesting, I think. And I
I
think
hope
it's
so.
going to give a different slant on your maths lessons, your double maths at school, which I hated, but I think this is going to make it look a whole lot more interesting.
Yeah, I'm terrified again, but you know, we're in this fight, and let's have some fun while we're doing it. But thanks, John, for your time.
Cheers, matey. Yeah, great having you
Cheers,
on.
mate.
See you next time.
Bye.